So I received the new intake manifold in the mail, which is pretty exciting. It's nice and bright and shiny. We took some time. We transferred over all the stuff from the old broken manifold to the shiny new one. So the sensors, the fuel injectors, the rails. Wasn't quite as easy as we thought, but got it figured out. The new one is a slightly different configuration for where the oil fill and the kind of the breather is on the back. So it took us a little bit of time to figure that out, but we got her organized and down into place. We did run into a bit of a problem I wasn't really expecting, which was one of the bolt holes ended up getting, it was like it was full of like caked in mud or grime or something like that. And kind of this back one that you see us trying now, it doesn't really go down, right? So I didn't want to damage it, so we ended up kind of chipping it all out, vacuuming it all out, getting it all cleaned out, which is kind of confusing since the original one fit in there no problem, and it's the same bolt length, same everything. We tried switching bolts, we tried doing a whole bunch of different things, but we ended up making it work. And yeah, the new intake is dropped on. Everything looks good. With a couple challenges, digging out some dirt out of one of the holes, but otherwise we're raring to go. Probably the biggest question I'm facing right now is somehow this is going to control the alternator and tell it when to make charge and when it's not. I just need to read some instructions here and figure out how to make this guy work. So while we were working on the engine, we realized, hey man, if we get this started, because everything else is hooked up, we should try to get the brakes working so that if it does get running, we can actually take it for a drive. So me, like a fool, did not bench bleed the booster before I put it into the car. So you can see I had to unhook the permanent lines and hook up some temporary ones that recirculate back into their respective bowls. And essentially you sit here and you pump and pump and pump, and you can see the bubbles that are coming out of the either both the tube and the kind of reservoir at the bottom there as we actuate the brakes. So we probably spent 20 minutes doing this, going through the procedure a few different times, making sure that everything was good. And then it was a little bit disappointing because I bled brakes before and didn't have too many issues, but these ones were kicking my butt. We tried to bleed them, you start with the furthest one away, tried to bleed it, didn't work, was only pushing air, and it just doesn't seem like any brake fluid was getting back there. Tried the front ones, getting a similar deal, and I'm wondering if it's something with my residual pressure valves or proportioning valve or something, but either way, I'm gonna see what I can do to figure it out, but I might end up just getting a shop to help me sort it out. So I hooked up the ECU to the computer, and I'm just doing the first step, which is updating the firmware. So it's about 8 minutes or so, and I guess to make it happen, mine's a bit interesting because I don't have a laptop with Windows. So I got my USB cable, about a 20-foot USB cable that I ran all the way along, back up to the USB port underneath inside the car to hook it all up. So this is one of those live gauges I was talking about. You can see the bar going up is my throttle position sensor. So I did this after I had finished my throttle position calculation. All right, so here's the sit rep. The car is still not starting. What I've figured out so far is the fuel pressure is good. If I kick on the fuel pump, I can see my gauge, cute little gauge down there. Climbs up, holds steady at 58 psi, which is what everything is tuned for. I chased probably about 50 leaks in my fuel system underneath here, trying to get it to stop leaking. Made me leave the doors open all the time so that I don't end up with problems with gas going in the house. But then when I go to start, I get no life. And we get no life. What I've traced it to, I think, is what I'm not getting, the injectors are not kicking in. So I'm getting the fuel, I know, is getting into the rail. I don't have a gauge on the rail, but fuel pressure regulator, straight to rail. So I have to assume I'm getting pressure on the rail. But when I pull a plug, it is bone dry. So I'm thinking that I must have a tuning concern that's stopping the injectors from opening when I'm needing them. So that's the next problem I'm going to chase. But I guess I did chase a whole bunch of other little things while I was Been working around here. We finished the oil filter relocate, got it all tuned up. Coolant overflow bottle, radiator back in, rad hoses all hooked up. Everything wiring wise is done except for this little guy, which is your wideband, which my exhaust right now consists of just about 6-inch chunk of pipe bolted to the flange. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the progress. So underneath the car, I've got everything hooked up, ready to go. So drive shaft is in and bolted. I'm gonna drop her back on the wheels here shortly so that I can get her ready to wheel out of the house and get into the trailer. So the car is close. It's not making the noise I want, but it makes noise. Not quite the noise I want though. Oh, and one other downer is when I had to change the intake manifold, my bracket that I built to hold my throttle cable doesn't really work anymore because of the geometry of this intake manifold is slightly different than the stock one, which means that the bracket will not bolt back on and the cable is slightly too short, so I have to change a few more things on this as well. So good times, but we'll see what we can do. Oh, I guess one other thing is I filled the trans. I'm supposed to take like 8.8 quarts. I put about 7 in it now and it showed high on the dipstick. So my expectation is once I get it running, get the engine running, get the pump spinning on the front of the transmission to push the fluid around, it'll have to go fill the cooler, fill other stuff. So I'll have to keep checking it, but at least it's got enough in there so it won't cause any problems. I did the same with the engine oil. I guess I could check here, but I'm assuming oil has been pushed up into the oil filter now. I've turned it over a few times, so hopefully it built a little bit of pressure that can spit it back out this way. That's where she sits right now, so bear with me. I've got to go and dig through the mess that is the tuning file that I don't fully understand, but working towards it so I can kind of make this thing work. All right, so some big news. I'm moving. So I'm moving back to my place where I have my 3,000 square foot shop, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But what that means is the poor car is going to be sitting for a little while. I'm actually taking it to a shop here in where I'm living now next week, and I'm going to get them to finish bleeding my brakes and just double check everything, because I definitely don't want to have any issues with the brakes, so I'd rather have a professional shop take a look at it, make sure they don't see anything wrong with it so I don't end up with any problems down the road. Also, they're going to look at my exhaust. So right now I just have, like I showed you guys before, just the stubs off the manifold down there. And what they're going to do is I think I'm going to go with a crossover. So just a single line all the way down the passenger side and do a crossover from driver to passenger, maybe like 3-inch all the way back or something like that. Something quiet, but so yeah, the car is gonna sit kind of the way it is right now. I tried hard to get her running. It is what it is, and I will spend some more time to troubleshoot it and figure it out, but unfortunately I ran out of time while I'm here. I gotta move here very shortly. So the rest of my garage is getting all packed up. Everything's getting packed up into totes. So soon, about 2 weeks from now, I'll be all moved out and moved into back into my own place. Pretty stoked about it. So, well, this might be the last video for a little while.